Rich Langley says, I'm way back on the horse. Scrappy in places, but 2 points are 2 points. Jake continues to help out the opposition with helpful advice, which seems to annoy them, and Watsy continues to use his head, but in the wrong way. Pun obviously intended. Solid performances across the team, and the young guys are slipping seamlessly into the starting 17. Once that injury crisis abates, the winky face, we'll have a squad to challenge anyone.
Sarah, another Hull fan, and like we said, she'll be on with us next week. She said, in the long run, I think it will benefit us having played on Friday and not having to find time to fulfil this fixture. A scrappy game, which we did well to win. Snide's in-game kicking was poor, but thankfully his goal kicking was accurate. Yeah, this game had 100% goal kick in the first game of the season to have that. Jake Connor is turning into a player every other team hates, but is loved by his own fans. He controlled the game well. Carlos Tumavarvi threatened all night. What was A? And then she said, I can fill that in however I want, but she said bloody idiot, I think, when I was messaging her after the game. So,
misguided?
Yeah.
So, Paul O'Brien, POB 1976, again with 2 red cards that fans can't really complain about. I don't think anyone would argue with that. A high tackle by Patton and then a massive brain fart from Watts. Both deserve to be sent off.
And that's the SLP match official verdict, so we are sticking with that, and there's no arguing of that.
No arguments.
Lee Whitnell said, the most positive thing to take out of this game for me was the fact that we got the game played despite the conditions to avoid a fixture pile-up later in the season. The game itself was forgettable for everything other than the 2 stupid sendings off, the first of which will leave us without a backup halfback for the coming weeks, and Saints heading into the Halliwell-Jones next. Sort of disgruntled, resigned face? I don't know what emoticon that is. Anyway,
yes,
emojis are not my area of expertise.
Okay, so moving on to Fun Uncle Tim. I was going to say, because Tim made a fatal error in the last podcast by saying it's not Tim Gradio. So it will forever be Tim Gradio now. Sorry, Tim.
Yeah, there was a lot of that to him on Twitter, wasn't there, over the week?
Of course. It's like it's like X Factor on Twillies all over again, isn't it?
Yeah.
A game that made me feel cold just watching it. Pattern a clear red, but wasn't as malicious / stupid as Watts's. He's on his way to joining Gareth Hock in the category of could have been an England regular had he not been an idiot at crucial times. You could see how irritated Bradford was, and you have to ask how many times he'll be able to do this without more severe consequences, such as signing for Lee or Toronto. So, very good, Tim. Yeah,
that's a good place to start, isn't it? Because that whole Liam Watts England conversation has caused a bit of a spat between Watts and Rod Studd on Twitter. There was, Watts came out with his tweets, his platitudes, and his not in my makeup or not in my nature, he said, but I'm sorry for any kids who saw it and apologise and all that sort of stuff. Tried to make a little bit of a joke about it because it wasn't the most ferocious headbutt, but it was one of the most utterly ridiculous ones I've ever seen on a rugby field.
It was just, inexplicable for a professional. You wouldn't expect to see that on an amateur field, quite frankly. Somebody who's supposed to be a leader on the field. It was just, just bizarre.
Ludicrous.
From my point of view.
The David's WTF face. Crosby was so put back by it that he didn't even feel the need to engage in any kind of fighting, which you'd normally see everyone running in when there was a bit of a headbutt. But this was just like, no, let's stand back and think, what is this mental?
Yeah. Well,
what has happened here? This is just bizarre.
Yeah, it was like literally. So he obviously thinks he's coming in to play the ball, doesn't he?
Well, if you read his excuse. He says that the referee called held 2 times. I was literally watching the game back just before that moment of the game when I read that tweet. So when I watched it and I heard the referee shout held release 1 time, I straight away was like, hold on, no he didn't. Stop trying to blame someone else. But yeah, if you read that, you'd say that he was disgruntled by the tackle, kind of going on longer than it should. I think he played a part in that personally, but anyway. But then there was a whole pause, and then he just walked. I'm lost for words.
This is the thing, because as you say, in the heat of the moment, if they'd been in the, still kind of, he was trying to, extricate himself from the floor and he'd kind of stuck the nut on, you'd kind of think, well, he's annoyed, he feels like he's being held down, that literally is the heat of the moment. But everything was over. He'd walked away from him. They were about 5 yards apart, and he walked back towards him.
Every time someone held on a little bit longer, the person responds by rubbing their head up against the opposition's face, then we'd have a much different competition. Maybe one that the Hearns would love getting involved in selling, though. Yeah. However, that was my point on Jake Connor. I think he's seen this Hearn thing coming up on the rails, and he's thought, I can take advantage of this. I can be like a villain here. So when they start doing the press conferences and they have everyone doing the mock falling out stuff, because I think secretly he's just a little bit of a shit-stirring wind-up merchant, and he's probably not quite the arsehole that he's behaving like. I think he's enjoying it. I think he's just like stirring. I think he got bored of being like just that talented kid at Huddersfield that never really quite got the chat about him and the respect that he maybe deserved for his talent levels. And then when he had to do this whole moving club situation, and then wasn't he, all that gave him a taste of the drama, of the of the pageantry of it all. And now he's just that's my new theory on Jake Connor. So just because he wants to get ahead of the game there with the new way of marketing the sport that the Hearns will undoubtedly introduce.
I mean, how people fall for it, I have absolutely no idea. I mean, he's well known. Every fan knows what he's like. He might be loved by FC fans, but I think everyone else despises him and be quite happy to not to see him on the field again. But
he did have a great game, ball in hand.
He did, and this is the thing, because I made some notes, and he, kind of before that all happened, and I had a couple of very complimentary things to say about the way that he actually played, but it just fades into insignificance because everybody hates him, and
that kind of goes for both him and Watts. Not everybody. Everyone doesn't hate Watts. Everyone seems to have a remarkable level of sympathy for him, considering his disciplinary record over the last 18, 20 months. But it's a very similar thing, isn't it? Like, we all enjoy watching both of them because of what they bring to the rugby league field. But then we all kind of get a bit wound up about them too.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I'm amazed. I mean, I suppose this is the heat of the battle, isn't it? Where you feel like you're defending your player or whatever. But yeah, you would have thought that every coach would have it drummed into him to say, ignore him. He is just going to do this to you constantly. Let him stew in his own juice, kind of thing. And it stopped. But the only reason he continues is because he gets a reaction, and he continually does.
Totally. So yeah.
The sooner people learn to. Exactly, he's got himself a little.
What about the pattern sending off? We should touch on, because actually, if anything, it was a much worse blow than the one that Liam Watts delivered with his head. Burrito Ferreira was forced out of the game there with that, and it's his second concussion in 4 weeks in Super League, which must be a worry for him from that standpoint. But as well, quite significantly, it was the right call. I don't think, from my view, Patton was necessarily trying to hit him round the head. I just think Patton was trying to make a strong connection with a much bigger, much faster bloke, and got it horribly wrong. So Watts got a grade C penalty notice, which he may contest or may take the grade C that he's going to get a 3-game ban for if he doesn't contest it. Patton actually got a grade D. He has to go to Red Hall and have a chat with the powers that be tomorrow afternoon and see what the outcome of that is. I think he might end up with a similar sort of ban to what Watts might end up with because of his previously clean record. But it was a nasty looking shot. It was certainly not necessarily malicious, but he was off his feet, he was out of control, and it was a swinging arm that made direct contact to the head. That's my summary of that incident.
I can't argue with anything you've said because it's bang on. I think, obviously, he's trying to recover from a player who's broken the line, isn't he? So he's coming from slightly behind the guy, he actually has access to hit him anywhere, kind of along his kind of his chest or on his
it's like,
side or on
they
his
can't
legs.
run without the heads.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, and he wasn't going anywhere. I mean, it's one of those I can't see on the field when a player hits the ground like that.
Yeah.
When he's literally out cold, and it's a sickening thing to see.
It's concerning, isn't it? Yeah.
It's for any kind of guy's long-term health.
And a
that
guy
kind
whose
of thing is
game's
worrying.
built on power and sort of physical contact as a winger, the way his game's built, it's worrying that he's had two already. The first one against Wigan was a completely accidental situation. This one as well was accidental in that it wasn't meant to happen, but serious in that it was direct, and that's a worry that he's had two already this season.
And you might see him sit for a couple of weeks. I would hope I'd see him sit for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'd hope he would take a spell out, because the Hull are up on Thursday night as well, aren't they? So a slightly shorter turnaround. So he would have had to have probably come through the concussion protocol cleanly already. Now they did have him back on the bench and he did look lucid. So maybe that's a promising sign at least. Let's talk about any of the positives other than the sending off and the injuries.
Yeah, let's do that.
And the like, because in your notes that you've got, how much beyond Carlos Tumavarvi's try was brilliant, a well-worked play that was fully diagrammed out for us all in the post-game roundup. But other than that, what else did you take from this game in terms of the action on the field?
It was just really interesting kind of early on. I thought it was really nip and tuck early on. I think FC kind of, their kicking game was really good to start with. They were kind of pinning Wire down. They weren't dealing with it. But I thought Warrington, they were so dull in attack. They didn't seem to have anything to show, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's that problem that is there. I mean, Tyrone Roberts was reasonable against Wigan, but he wasn't lights out, I wouldn't say, and that was one of the reasons why they didn't score more points the week before with all the dominance they had. In this game, they had very little chances, didn't they? And they really couldn't move the Hull defenders around, like you say. Do you think matchups there? Do you think partnerships waiting to gel, or are you worried that maybe they just don't have it in them?
I worry they've backed the wrong horse in Roberts. I don't see him. He never impressed me, because I saw a fair amount of him last year. He never impressed me last year. He was a journeyman there, and I know sometimes they can come over here and be superstars, but he hasn't shown me anything this year to show that he's going to be any kind of driving force for them. I don't think much of his kicking game. I've written down Roberts Anonymous. I've put down here, and that to me was him, really.
But they did manage to get something going in the game in the second half, and Darryl Clark was their main sort of outlet, their sort of star player, 10 metres a carry kind of behaviour.
Yeah. Usual stuff.
Absolutely rapid. Won the man of the match. Maybe that was a bit strange, but he probably was Warrington's best player.
Possibly. I mean, when we're talking about good players, I know he's mentioned in the stats, but I thought Dean Hadley was absolutely fantastic. Kind of worked his socks off, kind of unglamorous, kind of picking up some of the slack that obviously when your mate's not playing, you need somebody to pick up those tackles, don't you? And
he has done that, definitely. Last week he was in the roundup for the same thing.
So, yeah, I mean, I thought he was really good, and he would have been, kind of one of my, maybe slightly left field selections for potential man of the match. But I thought
it wasn't a flowing, exciting game. It was a gritty game, I suppose, in the end, and they gritted it out to get over the line by putting together a few penalties and stuff to keep hold of possession, mostly in the last 5 minutes, didn't they? So shall we move on to the stats then? Because we don't have much to talk about on the other games. Hull FC were much tidier in their work than Warrington, so had fewer errors, fewer penalties conceded, and fewer missed tackles for a 3.1% better team tackle success. That against one of the usually better tackling sides in Super League in Warrington. They came to this game second in the league in tackle success, so obviously that bit there. They also had 3 more breaks despite a 1 metre per carry deficit. Of course, the 2 red cards, though, is probably the most significant stat in this one compared to the other games. of late, because how can you remember the last time you saw two red cards that were not from the same fighting incident?